Alright guys, this video is on how to draw and shade a realistic cylinder. Materials you're going to need is a simple sheet of printer paper, a pencil, an eraser, as well as a sharpener. So go ahead, pause the video and grab those materials for yourself if you need. Otherwise, let's keep moving here. So a little bit of background. So far, we've drawn a shaded box, a shaded cylinder, and this is our target today, a shaded sphere. Okay, a shaded sphere has much of the same components that the cylinder and the box have. All three of these have a terminator. That's this line, the point at which the planes on a surface start to point away from the light source. Okay, they've all got cast shadows, and the sphere and the cylinder, what they have is reflected light. Okay, for the cylinder, it was this bottom left portion that was just slightly lighter than the rest of the core shadow, the form shadow. We have the same situation here, but the shape of it is slightly different. You see, the reflected light is a crescent shape. Okay, so those are the things that we want to watch out for, but I'm going to walk you through step by step on how to capture all those elements. First thing, let's draw a circle, a freehand circle. Don't make it too large. The diameter of it wants to be about 1.5 inches. The way you can estimate that is the distance between these two knuckles on your index finger is about 1 inch. You want 1.5 of those. Okay. I understand that for some of you, the freehand circle might still be a little tricky. Since this is a shading exercise, I'm okay with you using the bottom of your mug or any other circular object to help you out with drawing the circle. Disadvantage to that, of course, is you can't really control the shape or the size of your circle. But try to find something that's about this small. Okay. For the camera's sake, I'm actually going to go a little larger. For your exercise, you don't have to go this large, okay? Otherwise, it'll take a little too long for you. So that's about a 2-inch diameter for me. I'm okay with that. Once you draw your freehand circle, the next step is to draw a oval, a slanted oval that's going to represent the outline of the cast shadow. You want to tilt your paper this way. Okay. And the oval wants to be a little bit longer than the height of the sphere, just a tiny bit longer. Okay. The height of the sphere is about here, and the oval, if you notice, is a little bit longer than that, and it's at a slant. I do want it to be a little rounder, so I'm going to adjust the line of that a bit. Okay, if you're having trouble with the proportion of your oval, let me show you a little trick you can use to help you out with getting an even proportion. What you can do is draw yourself a crosshair. Starting from about here at the bottom of the sphere, draw a straight line that's slanted, and then crossing right over it, okay, perpendicular to it, is a shorter line that's about 1/3 of the length. If you have these two lines, you now have 4 endpoints that you can use as a target for your oval drawing. So when you go in this oval motion, you want to be looking for your pencil tip to be hovering over those 4 points. And then slowly let your pencil let down, go a few passes, and that's one way to draw your oval with a crosshair guide. Okay, so we have our circle and our oval. The portion of the oval that's intersecting within the circle, we want to erase that. Anything inside the circle, we erase. We definitely don't need the crosshairs anymore, so if you use that method, erase those two to just leave you with the outline of the oval itself. Okay, the next step is to draw in the Terminator. Again, to review, the Terminator is the edge, in this case for the box, or the line, the imagined line, in this case for the cylinder. It's the point at which the planes of a form start to point away from the light source. Okay, for the box, because we have a sharp edge that shows up as a distinct line. For the cylinder, we have a gradual transition from dark to light, but it starts at about here. Okay, the Terminator for a sphere is here, but it's in the shape of half of an oval. So here's how we draw that. Tilt your paper like so. Actually, it's almost going to be upside down. We want to draw an oval right inside of the sphere. Okay. In terms of the thickness of it, we want it to be thick enough where this one portion is about 1/3 of the sphere. And then you can just erase this portion right there. That's our Terminator. It's just a half of an oval. Let me explain why we're using a half of an oval instead of just a C shape. Okay? Give me a moment. A really common mistake to make here when drawing the Terminator is you got the circle like this. Common mistake is to draw just a C shape like that and think, okay, that's good. Here's the thing. A Terminator does not have this sort of corner condition. All right. The reason why we draw a full oval to begin with is because that gives us the tangent edge condition that we need. All right, so I drew a full oval and I erase it. If I clean that up, here's what happens. The curvature here is pretty much similar to that C shape, but right as it gets closer to the sphere, you're going to see that it bends more and more until it follows the actual curvature of the sphere. Same thing on the bottom side. All right. As it gets closer to the edge of the sphere, it bends more and more until it follows the actual curvature. That's why we use half of an oval as opposed to just a single C-shaped line. Thought of another way, just imagine yourself that this is a road and here's a wall and you're driving a race car. If you drive high speed, you're going to hit that wall. Versus over here, here's the wall and here's your road. You can drive, but then the turn accommodates you enough so that you can actually make that curve. Okay, so no intersecting lines like this. Okay, not that. We want half of an oval because we want this curve to wrap around and become tangent with the edge of the circle. So that's the kind of why behind the technique of drawing in this Terminator. Okay, we want it to wrap around so that it becomes tangent without running into and crashing into the side of the circle. Good news, we're ready to start shading. The first area we're going to shade is the bottom left portion of the sphere, right up to this Terminator. Okay, so this whole crescent area, we're going to shade that in down to a dark gray. In terms of our swatches, we're taking it down to a 4. Okay, dark gray only. So like we've been doing before, hold your pencil long so you don't apply too much pencil pressure. choose a direction to go in. I'm going in a slight diagonal and lay down an even tone of gray, keeping your stroke direction consistent. I'm not changing my stroke direction at all. And we're not looking to go straight for the dark gray immediately. We're going to add multiple layers to this area to gradually build up the value. That's my first layer. The second layer wants to go in a different stroke direction. So I slightly turn the paper. Each successive layer is going to make it so that, one, it becomes darker. Two, the different stroke direction and the variation there is going to help to smooth out and even out any kind of scratchiness you might be getting. Okay, I have some overlap on the edges. I can just kind of lightly clean up. I'm going to go for 2 or 3, probably 2 more layers here. I'm turning my paper once more. Again, I'm not using much pencil pressure at all. I'm keeping the stroke direction consistent for each layer. I'm taking it down to a dark gray or a 4. Okay, I'm just sort of cleaning up and adjusting some of the curvature. One more very light layer to bring it down to a 4. The number of layers you need to put down is going to depend on your natural hand pressure. I'm somewhere in the middle, so this is like, I think this is my 5th layer. Okay, as far as shading goes, that's step 1. We've shaded the form shadow of the sphere up to the Terminator. Okay. The next thing we want to draw in is the reflected light. Okay. The reflected light for a sphere is going to be coming in from this direction, bouncing off of the ground, and then hitting the bottom left surface of the sphere, which in essence gives you a tiny sliver, okay, kind of like a waning moon shape, a tiny sliver of this form shadow that remains as a 4. Okay, that line, we're gonna make that blend out and disappear. For now, draw yourself a crescent shape, okay, over here, so that you know, like this portion, I'm not gonna touch that really. The rest of it, we're gonna take it all the way down to a 5. So that's how you draw in or shade in the reflected light on a sphere, as well as on a cylinder too. It's a similar process. We're darkening in the portion of the form shadow, and the portion that's left over is the reflected light. It's kind of 2 birds with 1 stone, because the portion that's dark, that's being darkened in, that's called the core shadow. Okay, it's the portion of the form shadow that's left over from the reflected light. All right, I want that to have a pretty clear difference, so maybe 1 or 2 more layers to take it down to a strong 5. And again, I'm leaving this left crescent shape alone as far as tone goes. Okay. Now I have my core shadow and my reflected light. But the division between them, it's too much of a distinct line there. I don't want any border lines on my sphere. Okay, so next step is to blend out any remnant of a borderline like we have over here. The way you do that is you lightly darken in, okay, with light pressure, darken in the area that's right next to that distinct edge and blend it out so that the hard edge becomes a gradual transition. I'm going to explain this in a more zoomed in way in a moment, okay? Because it's not an easy thing to do. Here's what happened. I had a dark area and a slightly lighter area. And there was a very distinct line dividing the two of them. I didn't want that line. So the way I blended that line out of there was by darkening in this left portion right next to the dark line. But here's the what you want to pay attention to. The pencil pressure when I'm on the dark side is firm. The pencil pressure by the time I get here is none. I don't have any pencil pressure by the time I get there. So really firm here, but as I move towards the lighter area, I'm loosening up on my pencil pressure quite a bit until I'm not even drawing. You repeat that a few times, and it should smooth out that dark line into a transition. Okay, I'll show you what that firm to zero pencil stroke looks like on its own. Firm pressure, and then I slowly move towards the left and loosen up my pencil pressure until it's nothing. One more time. Firm pressure, and then I move to the left, slowly less and less pressure until it's nothing. You can go left and right with this. Some people find it easier to go left to right. Same thing, okay? Firm pressure, slowly transitioning to no pressure. That's how you get rid of border lines when it comes to shading, okay? So coming back to this, it's a pretty subtle difference. I don't really see any distinct border lines yet. I'm going to darken in my core shadow a tiny bit, just to the left of my Terminator. So that's my form shadow complete there. Next step is we need is one of the most important. We need to blend out this Terminator line. But before we blend it out, you need to know the distance, okay? The distance you have between going from a dark 5 all the way down to a pretty light 3, okay? We don't have that much distance to do that. If you remember, that's something called Lambertian fall off, okay, where we need to make a quick transition from dark to light midtones. Thing I want you to draw here is another small oval. Okay, and we just want the bottom half of that. Again, this has to be very, very light, all right? Because this line that I just drew as a guideline wants to disappear, so you might want to lighten that up with your eraser. That's just my guideline to inform me that I'm at the Terminator here, and by the time I get there, I want to get all the way down to a 3, ready to transition into a 2 by the time I get to the rest of the sphere. So it's a short transition, but even though it's short, it still needs to be gradual from dark to light. Okay, so draw that guideline for yourself with half of an oval. I'm actually going to sharpen my pencil. To begin with, I'm going to shade in this area between the Terminator and that guideline that I put down to a 3, but a very light 3. Okay, so using far less pencil pressure than before now. Put down as even a layer as you can. Okay, that's a very light 3. I still have, now my job is to blend out this distinct line. I'm going from a 5 down to a 3 by the time I get to that this edge over here. So when I'm on this Terminator and close to it, my pencil pressure is more firm. I'm putting more pressure on there. By the time I'm moving towards that edge, less and less pencil pressure until there's no pressure at all. Okay. More pressure towards the left where the Terminator's at. Less pressure as I approach that edge. And turn your paper slightly around as you work on new segments of that Terminator. And blend it out. It's going to take more than one pass. That softened it up quite a bit, but I want it to be even more gradual of a transition. So adding in another layer. Okay, and I'm going to go over it with one more just sort of smoothing layer. There's a bit of scratchiness and unevenness here and there. Okay, I'm going to lighten up this edge just a little bit. Okay, so this rest of the sphere, we want to fill that in with the lightest tone of gray you can possibly manage. So it's a 2 at a light gray, but the lightest possible 2 you can get. Here's how we're going to do that. Hold your pencil between your index and thumb. Lightly rest it on your middle finger, and you're not even applying any real pressure to the pencil. You're letting the weight of the pencil do its work. Sort of letting it wiggle and scratch across the surface, moving very slowly, okay, to apply as even a layer of extra light gray that you can. And you just want to go in one layer like that. And once you're done with that, you can clean up the edge here so there's no borderline. once you have that extra light layer of gray down, we want to blend out this final edge, okay, between the medium gray and the extra light gray. Very, very gently blend that out using just the lightest amount of pressure. I have a little bit of a patch of dark gray that I'm just going to push on with my pencil, with my eraser. Just lighten that up a bit. Some touch-ups. And the outer edge of this sphere, I'm going to round it out a bit using my eraser. Be careful here though. We worked pretty hard on getting this shading done. You don't want to erase too much to have to repeat any work. Some touch-ups on a couple spots here and there. Okay, the next step is the cast shadow. That's the only element that's left in this drawing. The cast shadow is the darkest portion of anything we're shading in. What I want you to start with is by darkening in the area that's right outside of this reflected light. Reason for this is I don't want you to lose this edge and try to have to find it again. As if you were to start with shading in the entire area of the cast shadow, losing this edge can be problematic. Okay, so just darken in the portion that's right next to there first, so you know you're not going to lose that, and then you can go back in there, and we're going to take this all the way down to a 5. Same technique to achieve an even tone of whatever shade you need here, okay? We're going layer by layer with the stroke direction being switched up between each layer. So that was my first one. I'm going to turn the paper, second layer, different stroke angle. And we're building up the tone to get darker and darker with each successive layer. Third layer. Gonna sharpen my pencil. Something we want to keep in mind about this cast shadow we do want to take it down to a 5 to the black, right? However, we want to also keep in mind that there's a slight darkening that happens as it gets closer to the sphere itself. Okay, we're not going to worry about that quite yet. That's the last sort of touch-up we're going to do. First step is to create a dark enough tone overall. Okay, right about at this level of darkness, I'm going to start to think about this shadow that this kind of dark portion that I first put down. We don't want to leave it as a distinct line like that. We want to blend it out. Okay? And here's where you want to start to draw in and shade in a darker area right around the edge of the sphere that gets gradually blended out. So it's darker over here than it is over here, but it's a pretty subtle difference, but you still want it to be noticeable. Okay? So I'm blending it out, using less pressure towards the left side. Okay, let's talk about the edge condition. The edge of the cast shadow close to the sphere is quite sharp. But as you approach, as you get farther and farther away from it, the edge actually gets more and more blurry. Okay, it's a little more hazy. The way you can render that in is using your larger eraser. Just sort of press over the leftmost edges of the cast shadow. Okay, it's going to get a little bit smudgy, but the point here is to break up that line a bit. Okay, and you can go back in there, clean it up. That's a little bit messy what I did there, so I'm probably going to want to go back in there with my pencil and correct that a bit. I want to sharpen it up a little bit, but still want to maintain kind of a hazy edge over here. Okay. Last thing, it's a detail. You want to add in the occlusion shadows. So that's basically an extra dark portion of the cast shadow right where there's the crevice between the ground and the sphere itself. Okay, so that's jet black that we're taking it, but only in this one area, and you're blending it out. Okay, it's not a distinct line. Excuse me, guys. And then what you might find is the reflected light that you have over here on the bottom left, because of the amount of contrast and the darkness we put directly to the left of it, it might look a little too light, like it's kind of glowing. What you can do there is just go over it in one shade of gray to darken it in, but not by much. Okay, we still want there to be a clear difference between the reflected light and the core shadow right next to it. We just don't want it to look like it's glowing. So that looks about right. The main thing we're looking for here, guys, is for you to be able to identify the different parts of the form shadow reflected light, core shadow. Okay, we're also looking for mainly gradual transitions from dark to light. Okay, so that's how you draw and shade in a realistic sphere. Good luck, guys.